Well, hello there, Uber tuberubers and tuberettes. Fast and sleek, slow and round, and every other size. That everybody's welcome. Come on in. My name is Mike. I'm the old guy in question. Short talk in the trailer with an old guy. And you know how old guys talk. Well, that's what we're about to find out. Just thought I'd do a little vid today. Haven't done one in a day or two, and I just thought, well, some of the things that are kind of bouncing around in my head here. And I thought, well, sometimes I used to do this when I was younger. I used to do a lot of writing. I mean, physically, I would write essays, page after page, essays, and I would title them too. I probably got some of them left here. There was like so many of them. I had a box full. And I got rid of that stuff. And then I had my blog for a little while. I think it's philosopherplumber.com. I don't know if it's still out there or not on Google. Did a few essays there, and I like to express myself on Facebook sometimes, politically and stuff. And but this venue right here, I've been doing really almost exclusively now for months and months, at least since last spring. So now that's almost like 3/4 of a year. And so there's already a buku bunch of these videos out there. And so if you're curious about whether this is typical or not, I guess you could just take my word and say, kind of. Typical schmippical. That's really bad Yiddish. So at any rate, I was thinking today, when I saw a video or two, I was just kind of browsing and browsing. I didn't really settle down and actually watch anything in particular. It was just, let's say this is a 12-minute video. I watched 3.5 minutes. I've seen it. I know what you're talking about. Boom, move on. And that's the way I watch TV. So that's why I don't trust myself to have a TV. If I get a TV in here with a remote and, cable or whatever, 63 channels or 150, however many channels they got, I don't know. And you can just sit there going blip, blip, blip with the remote. Oh my gosh. I can get sucked into that for hours. Like just, and if you ask me later, what did I watch? It's like, well, I don't know. But it was like a lot of lane changes. So if a commercial comes up, for sure, I'm going to jettison out. I might be watching 3 or 4 shows at once, so to speak, dipping in here, dipping in there. So that's how I consume on TV. And it's just like, no, I don't want to do that because I could easily do it for hours. And every time I'm in a motel that has a remote, watch out, here he comes. And I'm sure it must be horribly, annoying to anyone else in the room. Thank goodness I travel alone. Anyhow, I was thinking, we got all these numbers coming up here. I think it's 245K in the USA of this year alone, and we're coming up on the end of the year. 245K EDs, and you know what I'm talking about, and it ain't erectile dysfunctions. Howsoever, that might also apply, and I think we've covered that once. The more than expected, shall we say, statistically speaking, for the metric of observation as per making money in insurance premiums, knowing, shall we say, the average date in terms of health, wealth, and wisdom, whatever the average age, whatever that is, of a person, shall we say, passing out of this world might be, there is statistical curves which can be described showing what we might expect next year. And the numbers might vary by a 1 or a 2%, 1 or 2. But in the last year, 2, 3, we've been seeing 15 and 20% EDs. And those EDs, boy, that's a bummer. Because it's like, how many families are involved? We know at least 245K individuals. How many families? Maybe that many. We're talking affecting probably well over 1 million people in their regular daily lives. That's just this year. And who's talking about it? Which politician? Which talking head out there? Which which genius? Which theological wizard? Which pundit or whatever is just kind of getting on it and saying, hey, you know what? This is a silent deal going on right now, and there's simply no talk allowed about it. And so I'm going to have to dance around the topic here because you know how some people love to censor people, but they won't tell you why. Well, so I'm going to have to talk around in circles a little bit. So I hope you can follow. And if you don't, I'll draw you a picture. I wonder if I could just draw a little picture and say, read this, read that. That'd be fun to get by the non-censors, the ones who are not interfering with free speech. You know what I'm talking about? So anyhow, I was thinking, there's an awful lot of roaring silence out there about this topic, and take it as an example. Uh, Gosh, I wish I could do a little bit of research so I would sound a little more factual, but I want to say the numbers for automotive deaths by accident in the U.S. of A. in last year was kind of like 50K. I think that's correct, maybe 50 to 60K, which that number varies some, high and low. Some years is high and everybody's outraged, some years is low and then everybody forgets it. But think of about 50,000 families a year in this country affected by the plague called, let's say, drunk driving, or, someone's asleep at the wheel, or my brakes went out, or I wasn't paying attention. Whatever it is, people die out on the road, 50K a year. Think, what? 7 times 5 is 35. Sorry. 5.5 times 5. Plus 5 times that amount is mysteriously EDing on the way out. Who's mentioning it? Who's asking questions? And who's asking about the cause? Because I think even a boy, even a girl, even a little kid, if confronted with the facts and given the history of what's happened, I think they could put 2 and 2 together to consistently equal 4. They would know, and it wouldn't be some huge mystery about what the source of these EDs are. We already know what the source is, but they won't say it, and I'm not going to say it right here, because you know what's going to happen. See ya. So, you know what I'm talking about. There's shall we say, expensive juices involved, custom made and experimental, but nevertheless mandated. And so I was thinking about this. I watched another video the other day. I think it's the governor or governorette, whatever it is, of the state of New York. I never heard of this woman before, but at any rate, she's working to establish a kind of a state power in the future. Should there be, shall we say, another demic? Should there be one of them? Oh yeah, probably. And it has to do with every 4-year cycle. Have you noticed? How coincidental is that? And so, in other words, the state of New York is trying to reserve the right to quarantine by force and by law people who refuse, I said refuse, to take their, shall we say, experimental and highly doubtful remedy. And so the numbers are building up, and it's the embalmers who know it, it's the insurance companies who know it, it's the funeral directors who know it, that this is boom times for them. They're knocking off people. So we've got into a situation now where the government of the United States, and probably in concert with some kind of international cadre of power, I don't know how this works, why would worldwide collective participation occur in nation after nation after nation, such they all agree coherently, let's kill our own people? That's the best policy, and we'll make a profit at it. That's where, I mean, essentially the government is being run by drug cartels. Oh my gosh. Then on the other hand, there's the dark part of the story. Oh, by the way, today's sponsor says I'm out of here. Kilt Lifter, the beer called Premium Stuff, from me. So I was just thinking that with all the roaring quiet going on about something not being said, and all this stuff that's kind of building up, guess what's happening in China right about now? There's a walking pneumonia kind of thing, or maybe it's not walking, but anyway, it's a pneumonia-like thing, and mainly assaulting children, I guess. Some hospitals are reporting something between 9 and 13,000. I said 9,000 to 13 additional, applicants today? Can we come on in? No, it's a hospital. How are you going to put 9,000 people in there? That's in one day. And so it affects apparently children mostly, we think. And I don't know anything about the details of this pneumonia, but the timing is just incredible. It's almost exactly this time of year, back in 2019, that we saw the first inklings of you-know-what. So I keep thinking, well, you know what they're going to do? They've already ushered in the new bug. They already built the sucker. They've released it. Now we know it's on the loose. Let's just circle China with a big fence. You keep that crap in there and don't allow one plane to land on any country in the world that came out of mainland China. See how you like that? Of course, they won't do it. They're going to keep on welcoming them because you don't want to be xenophobic, don't you know? You don't want to be a racist, do you? It's like, so we got to let all the Chinese come across the border because, I mean, whether they're legal or illegal, it doesn't matter. As long as you're carrying the virus. That's what they did last time. And bring it on in, bring it on in. It's the greatest thing since Cheese Whiz. And so it's a man-made artificial deal. And it went in for gain of function research at a profit. In other words, the Chinese made money, so to speak, perfecting something so that it would be more transmissible among humans than it would have naturally been. Because, see, the thing never would have naturally occurred by itself. It was a forced, mutated gene. These combinations that occurred in this viral thing never would have bonded in nature. And scientists knew it, and they know it, and yet you'll still hardly hear it at all. It's man-made. And so this new go-around, guess what? It's man-made. And the same kind of hokey pokey, it looks like it's going to bust out. This time, though, the power grab looks big. Looks like people are beginning to really freak out that maybe you-know-who in 2024 might actually win. And, you know, he's got to beef up his security, I'm sure. I pray for the safety of DJT. You know, I like the man. I'm not one of his worshipers, but, I mean, he speaks straight. He's an American. He's 1,000 times better than the so-called competition. But now he's got to watch his back because they've run out of options, and you know what's left is, you know, that's what happened to JFK. So, could be. But, so we pray for him and actually Bobby Kennedy Jr., same thing. Physical safety. The so-called administration, the poodle, I think to this day is denying Secret Service protection to you-know-who. Why? Because basically he's corrupted and crooked at heart. The man is a criminal. The poodle needs to be behind bars, or dead, or both. Probably won't happen. You know, he'll probably die rich, happy, fat, and in his sleep, but he shall meet his maker. And no evil in this earth is ever forgotten, for he remembers our words and our deeds and our thoughts and our intentions. And so we present ourselves to the king and say, hey, you know, judge me, because am I perfect? Stop. I mean, that's a silly question. But our idea is that, you know, we're surrounded in a world where it's like this weird death cult where nobody wants to talk about it, and you're supposed to treat it like normal. Well, I mean, how normal is it for a 42-year-old to just suddenly keel over with a heart attack or whatever, you know? And is that the new norm? I refuse to accept it. And so I say the cult of death is closing in on itself, and it has no future. Stay untainted by their, shall we say, experimental drugs, and seek the Lord and seek deliverance, and we shall see his deliverance in our lives. We entrust our lives and our futures to the King. Things are looking scary. Things are looking weird. Yeah, okay, that's the norm. But in him, there's rest. And in him, there's guidance. And so that's what we do, is we give ourselves over again, once again, to our King today. We renew the covenant today in saying, I surrender. I want you. I want you more than I want anything. Because he's the key. He's the centerpiece. The biggest news in the world, the inventor of dirt stepped into it in person, and the locals didn't notice who he was. They couldn't figure it out. But we who have been called, if you hear his call on your life, you know that he has an identity. He calls himself, I am who is. He's the greatest. He's the God, the one and only God, the only true one. And he's the God of the Bible. He's the God of Abraham. He's the God of Jacob and the God and Father of our Lord Jesus. So he's gathering his people in. And so he's training your ears. Listen for what's true. He's training us to speak. Say what's right. And in due time, we shall see his deliverance as we entrust ourselves to him. That's today's pep talk, and I hope you don't mind sending me a nickel. I could use a nickel every now and again. I remember when I was a kid, there was these funny little business plans where, you know, I was supposed to sell seeds in the neighborhood and like make money. Saw this offer in the back of a comic book. But I mean, I never made any money and stuff. But it's always kind of like this idea that hey, you can become a mogul, you can become a rich kid, selling seeds. Think of yourself as a seed tycoon. It's like think of yourself as a kid with a box full of seeds that don't sell. So we do what we can. We try, and we give our hearts. But I mean, let's face it, we're all wrecked. We're all imperfect. But he takes what's bent and uses it to strike a straight line. He takes a bent stick and draws a straight line with it. That's how good he is. So hunker down. Things are getting weird. Things are getting rough. And he's going to be the one who, at your center, as you pray, helps you through it day by day. It's only one day at a time you handle. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Yesterday's in the bin, and for that we seek forgiveness or give thanks or both. Right now is the time to seek his face during this moment. And he meets us in the now. And not in the future, not in the past. And he extends these little nows so that it's really quite pleasant if you'd like to know. So, probably more than we needed to say. Have a good night and rock on. Wednesday's another day.